When the discussion about hot hatches come up, the Mazda 3 often gets left out. Everyone loves to talk about the Focus ST and RS, the GTI, and many others, but the MZ3 has all the elements to make a fun daily/weekend warrior. Lightweight, inline-4 turbo engine, short wheelbase, all the jazz you expect in a hot hatch. Realistically, there is no reason this platform shouldn't get more love, and we're here to do just that. The 4th gen launched in 2019. Despite being over 5 years old at the time of this writing, we cannot find a fitment guide on the internet for this generation anywhere, so we decided to step up to the plate and make one ourselves for you Mazda 3 owners. After all, plenty of these cars are already rocking aftermarket wheels, and we'll take a look at some examples later, but first, here's the basic fitment info you need to know. Now, the bolt pattern's a 5x114, M12x1.5 lug thread, center bore of 67.1, and the lug torque, just for fun, is 85 foot-pounds. The Mazda 3 uses pretty standard stuff for a JDM car, 5x114.3 lug pattern, and a 67.1 center bore. This means you have a ton of options for wheels, over 800,000 on the website to be exact. So generally, what do people run? Well, 18s are the go-to size for aftermarket wheels. This is also the largest factory size that they may come with. They come with 16 to 18. Of course, this does not mean you have to run 18s. 17 to 19 suits these cars well. The caveat is that 19s seem to look better on sedans, but this is easier to show than explain, so we'll compare the two later on in this video. For width and offset, anything between 8 and 9 with a 35 to 45 offset will give you flush or near flush fitment. Like some BMWs, the front wheels do have issues clearing the struts if you size your wheels too wide or too high of an offset, i.e. backspacing is an issue on these cars. Coilovers with long springs could reduce clearance, that is if the tire is above the spring perch. Watch our 1 series video, we talk about this more. The factory tires, especially in the 16s and 17s, are kind of, well, they're shit. They're known for having hydroplaning issues and zero grip, while also being loud and heavy. If you do nothing else, at least upgrade your tires. But if you're upgrading your wheels, you'll probably just get new tires too at the same time. You will, right? A good idea is 235/40/18 or 225/45/18. Much more traction than stock, yet not too difficult to fit. Now, 18-inch wheel fitment. This car is on ENKEI TMS 18.5/38 with stock Bridgestone 215/45 tires. This one is lower on Cork Sport lowering springs with no rubbing. Now let's jump straight into the good stuff. This is considered to be the perfect spec for this chassis. 18, 8.5, 38. Without adding any camber, you too can enjoy flush fitment. Now, the only downside with this example is that it's still on the stock tires, but hey, maybe the owner was saving up for some Pilot Sport 4S's or NT05s. This exact setup could run a 225 or 235 without needing the fenders rolled. This setup will work at basically any ride height, as we'll see later on in this video, and it's a great choice if you just want to swap in some new wheels onto your stock car. Now, this next Mazda 3 is running ENKEI TS7 18A+45 with Firestone Indy 500 225/45/18 tires. This one is on factory suspension with no rubbing at all. This is a very similar setup to the last one, but this one is just a bit less aggressive. We do see a great choice in tire here, the Firestone Indy 500, and at stock height, there are no rubbing issues with this slightly taller than stock tire, or any kind of problems with the wheels contacting the front suspension. This is not stance fitment, but it will definitely perform a whole lot better than stock. Consider these specs if you are keeping your car 100% OEM and just want to swap on some new wheels to make it look better and perform a little better. Next up, some ADVANs TC4s, 18.8.5/38 with ADVAN AD08R 245/40/18 tires. Lowered this time on BC Racing BR coilovers with Chasing J's titanium open-ended lug nuts, which are a lot of money. Look those up. Rolled fenders, minimal rubbing when cornering. This 2020 GT could just be one of the cleanest 4th gen Mazda 3 builds to date. The white on white, color match lip, perfect fitment, everything's just on point with this car. There are a couple of differences here. Now, the rear wheels have slightly higher offset than the fronts, and some say the front fenders stick out a little bit more than the rears. It's basically a C63, right? So, a lower offset can be used to get a more consistent look front and rear. Is this a necessity? Probably not, but if you're a perfectionist, there you go. This setup is only about a 1/4 inch difference front to rear, so you could just buy higher offset all around and run a spacer in the front if so inclined. Now, another difference here is tire size. Here we see 245/40s used. This is a bit larger than we recommended earlier because it will require some rolling or trimming of the fenders to make it work. Still, this size is not too difficult to run with a little bit extra work, but just falls a bit outside the OEM Plus range. This is also our first example on coilovers. If lowering springs aren't sporty enough for you or don't go low enough for you, you could always look into a set of coilovers, which you can purchase from our website. You can get the exact same set of BC Racing coilovers at the link down below in the description. Now, getting into 19-inch wheel fitment, Raxor Wheels Vox 50 FF 19.8.5/42 on PS4S 235/35/19 tires. This one's on stock suspension and there's no rubbing to speak of. So as I mentioned earlier, 19s can work on both sedans and hatches, but for some reason they tend to just look a little better on sedans. Here we see a sedan on 19-inch Raxor wheels Vox 50s. Width and offset aren't different than what we saw with 18s. The only real difference is the tire's sidewall needs to be reduced to compensate for the larger wheel diameter to keep the overall rolling diameter roughly the same as it would be with the 18s, 235/35/19 instead of 235/40/18. Now let's compare this to a hatch on 19s. This one's on niche M146, 19.5 plus 35 with 235/40/19 tires, stock height, no rubbing. This is not a one-to-one comparison considering the hatch has slightly larger diameter tires, but it's pretty darn close. Both are on stock suspension with similar wheel specs. Now for some reason the hatch looks a little bit more 4x4-ish on 19s. In my opinion, if you get 19s, definitely opt for a smaller sidewall tire and lower your car a little bit more to compensate. Next up, this one's on SSR SP5, 19.5 plus 35s with Pilot Sport 4S 235/35/19 tires, air suspension, OEM plus aero kit, OEM plus aero spoiler, OEM roof rack, roll fenders all around. Baller alert, this hatch has all the fixings, SSR SP5s, PS4Ss, and air suspension. This is an alternative reason to run 19s, to get fender to lip or even tuck fitment when paired with bags. The owner of this 4th gen decided to go all out with his build with some baller parts, but you could complete a similar build for much less money if you didn't want to run the air suspension or the 3-piece wheels. Nothing noteworthy about the wheel specs, this is very similar to what we've already seen earlier in this guide. Now 17-inch wheels, KONIG Ultraform 17x8 plus 45s with KEI KR205 225/50 17 tires. Stock suspension, no rubbing, high back spacing wheels can cause rubbing with wider tires. 18s and 19s are by far the most popular sizes for aftermarket wheels, but if you want to run 17s, you definitely can. Don't go any smaller though. Here's what a set of KONIG Ultraform wheels with some meaty tires look like on a Mazda 3 hatch. This is not for everyone, but if you like the look of some thick tires, this might just be for you. The owner notes the tires are one size wider, 235/50/17, did rub the lower purge of the strut when cornering, so try to stay away from the high 40s for offset unless you're okay with using wheel spacers or a smaller tire. Let's wrap this all up. So, if you look through all the examples provided, which you probably didn't, you probably skipped ahead in the video to the one you like the specs on, and you find that people haven't gotten too crazy with this generation of Mazda 3, well, at least not yet, the general consensus is that something close to 17 to 19 by 8.5 plus 35 will give you a perfectly flush fitment, including that bagged hatch on SSR that's running these specs. Except for a few wide-body builds, no one is really pushing the boundaries on this platform yet. The specs I talked about earlier are going to give you flush fitment, but with some camber, some fender work, and stretch tires, you could build something that's a first of its kind, a stanced 4th gen. Now if you've got a 4th gen on some wheels, regardless of the type of fitment that you're running, upload it to our vehicle gallery to show it off to the world and help others dial in that perfect fitment. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let us know down in the comments below what car we should do a fitment guide on next, and I'll see you in the next one.